Hello again, everybody. Happy Friday. It's Friday right now. At least I don't know when you're watching this. Shocker. No fake background. It's actually a room in my house. Um, I was upstairs, so I thought, why go downstairs for this? Couple things I wanted to share with you on this video. I want to talk a little bit about the assignment that I just graded and got back to you. So that's up on Blackboard. That's your topic and sources worksheet. Then I wanted to talk to you about what's coming up in the next couple of weeks because it's going to be a little weird with timing. But first things first, the assignment that you just turned in for this week that was the assignment for the worksheet. Those were not bad. There were some issues that seemed to be pretty common. And so, what I want to do is address those. This may not apply to you at all, or it may apply to you. Again, these were just the ones that were the most seen. And then, of course, everyone will have specific feedback. The way I did this, I just hit reply to your discussion thread, and then usually put your document, whether it was a PDF or Word or I think somebody did Pages, back in there with comments on it. So you'll have to go and make sure that you can see the comments. Um, there were a few that I didn't upload that I may have just written something in response. But here were the three that I noticed that stuck out to me. First things first is this that you're getting ready for. This next speech is going to be an informative speech. You know that. But when people were writing, here's how I will talk about it informatively and then persuasively, they were very similar for a lot of folks. And I want to make sure that you understand for the informative speech, you do not want to persuade us. You don't want to tell us how to think, feel, what we should do, what we should believe. In fact, here's a good check for you. At the end of your informative speech, by the time you finish it and we've all watched it, we should not know how you feel about your topic. Now, that's easier on some topics than others. So, if you're talking about, I know one person's talking about like sexual assault on a college campus, I don't want you to feel like you have to be so vague, like we don't know if you're for or against sexual assault on college campuses. That's not what I mean. But for the persuasive speeches, if you're going to talk about how we address it, we shouldn't know that you favor one plan over another, for example. Others are a little clearer, so people, I don't remember one right off the top of my head, I'm blanking on it, but if you're going to make the case for like mental health services, I think three people are doing that, and I think it's very appropriate for right now on college campuses. And we again don't need to know in the informative if there is a lack of. We just want to know the numbers. We might take away from that there's a lack of mental health care on campuses and access to it, but don't make that case because when you do, you're automatically and often unintentionally persuading us that there needs to be more. And I know that might feel a little weird for you, but that's part of the informative speech is again not letting us know how you feel. Then for the next speech, the persuasive speech, you can go crazy. I mean, really just tell us what the problem is, how you want to solve it, what should change, how that will be better. And again, you can watch Monroe's Motivated Sequence discussions on here that I recorded for you. And that's how we will approach that. So that's the first thing. Make sure the informative speech is in fact informative. The second thing, some folks maybe only gave one journal article or they only gave one source. And I don't know if that's because I only had one source, but those were designed just to be examples. When I had the topic at the top and then a source, you needed three. And specifically, they needed to be a peer reviewed journal article, a new source, and then a quality statistic from somewhere. And there shouldn't be overlap. So you couldn't use like the same journal article for your statistic and the general journal article. So that seemed to be a little bit confusing for some folks. The majority, that was not an issue, but it was for a few. What I'll take away from that is that most people, again, cited a journal, at least one, but a lot of folks did not name the journal the right thing. So I saw some journals where that blank was that said like ProQuest, or they just took it out completely, or it would say journal, and I forget, one just had like school names listed. So go back and relook at those. I tried to make comments on that, and since we're doing this sort of asynchronously, I was able to Google what you had put in, and most of the time it was a legit source, but it was not labeled right. And so remember, for all of your sources, journal articles, etc., you will generally want to cite the publication name and the date. So for news, instead of, according to Carl Brown in 2012, you'll want to say according to a New York Times article in 2012, if that's where it was published. Just think about it again. The name of the author is less important because chances are we don't know who they are. Now, again, as I said in the earlier video, or maybe you haven't watched it yet, maybe you have, but with that one, if it's Bill Gates or Albert Einstein or you name it, whoever, if they're talking about something they're an expert in, then you can cite that name because that's a big name. I mean, if you're talking about the legal system and you say, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg published an article in the New York Times, well, that's important that we know that. Then you don't want to just get to the New York Times. But again, if it's someone we probably haven't heard of, it's not so important. But always publication and date. Very, very important. Last part of that one. If your publication is a name that we have not heard of or can't readily identify, you will want to give us a quick explanation of what that is. So I'm making one up here. I'm looking around my room. Clockwork. I'm just looking at my clock. If there's a journal out there called Clockwork and we don't know what that is, you might say, according to a 2019 article from the journal Clockwork, which focuses on how we tell time and why we need it, they say that's really all you would need. But if it's maybe we've not heard of it, if you have any doubt, explain it to us just briefly. Don't use much time. All right, the last thing that I noticed from this, and this is a minor one, but it could be confusing in the actual speeches. If you have you found a source that was quality and you want to use some statistics from that, that's fine, but remember to differentiate between secondary and primary sources. So, for example, the one that stands out to me was there's the RAINN group. So RAINN.org. Again, that would be one where you'd want to definitely explain what that means. But it deals with sexual assault, where they cited the RAINN website, but then credited the Department of Justice as the author. You can just skip the RAINN, even though that may be where you found it, and just tell us that this is a piece of information from the Department of Justice. Also, if you have something like RAINN, that's where you would want to at least say it out loud, right? So give us what every letter means. Again, if it's FBI, CIA, NSA, those sorts of things, NASA, we know what those things mean. But if it's something unfamiliar, explain it. All right, so that's what I saw in this particular activity. Your grades are up, your feedback is there. If you have questions, please email me and let me know. Or you can reply. I don't know that I'll check the replies this weekend, but I will get back to you. You may as well just email me. So the next thing I wanted to point out is here. I like to be able to see. We just finished week 3. Again, don't forget about these content quizzes. Just a few folks still didn't do those. Those are vital. Next week we'll move on. And this is what I mean when I say it's going to be a little bit of a weird bit of timing, because we're going to talk about persuasion and Monroe's motivated sequence. That's the video to watch for next week. However, you are going to be working on your informative outline. And the way this had to work, because we have a very short semester and we needed to sort of, I couldn't make the informative outline due last week because we just talked about how to do it. So I wanted to make sure you had time to not only learn to do it last week, but to do it this coming week. So make sure that you're keeping up with the distinction there. The following week, week 5, that's when your speech is due, but we'll be talking again about Monroe's. And so on and so forth. And then we finish things up. So make sure that you're not getting confused with what's due and when. It's all right here. It hasn't changed. So go back to the syllabus, the course pack, and make sure that you are staying on track. All right, that's all I have. I hope you have a great weekend. And again, if you have any questions whatsoever, let me know. I've had some really good ones come in. I've shared those with you as we go. These last few I've not shared with you just because they were very specific. I think, it was sort of like, I want to talk about this topic. What do you think kind of questions. So that's fine. There was only one person I think that when I read your worksheet, I thought to myself, how is this going to be controversial? And I've asked the person that question, so I'm sure they can work it out. There's a few different ways to do it, but otherwise, people seem to be on an okay path. Just make sure that you're following the directions carefully, and that you go back and you read what's required of each assignment. Let me know again if you have questions. Otherwise, I will see you next time around. All right, have a great weekend.